Well, hello there. It's Tuesday night in Los Angeles, and welcome to Mainstream Metaphysics. I'm Nick Newmont, along with my wife and partner.
Audrey Newmont. So good to have you join us tonight.
It is good to be here. It's good to be back.
Yeah, we missed you. You were gone for 2 weeks. I had to do it all by myself.
I know. Well, softball is done. It's put to bed for a few months, so I'm here to stay, and I'm thrilled to talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. Fifth dimensional things, and really give the viewing audience a clear understanding of what fifth dimensionality is, because it's something that's thrown around and kicked around, and it's certainly not the music group from the 60s headed up by Billy Davis Jr. and Marilyn McCoo. It's not that fifth dimension. It's a realm of existence, and we do live in multidimensionalism. We don't always know it. However, you, Audrey, and a client of mine that was in the other day, and anybody that's gone on cruises in the Caribbean that is somewhat aware and sensitive, comes to realize that, yep, there is this event that takes place, and it kind of throws people a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like, where am I? Where was I? Did that just happen?
Right.
And it's cause for a reality check. It really is. Now,
hi, Kim. Nice to have you join us. You're the first tonight. Yay! And we still have to get together. I know you're back from Hawaii. Sorry for disturbing.
So when we talk about fifth dimensionalism, the first part of this is, and this is a hot topic right now, and people refer to it in a slang way as 5D. Mm-hmm. Okay? But here's what people don't realize unless you have been a student or a client of mine and the sentient healing work that I've been doing for about 26 years. And that work...
26 years now?
Yeah.
He's really amazing. If you've never had a layout with my husband, not that kind of layout. If you've never had an energetic layout, he's amazing at that.
Yes. Well, we used to, when I first studied that, they were called crystal layouts, but there was too much emphasis on crystals and the placement of the crystals. It's a fifth dimensional experience of high consciousness, and therefore a couple of years ago we changed it to sentient healing.
And I had a session today, and what he's talking about with that fifth dimensional business, I was there, and I had an experience over the weekend that I'll get into a little bit later. Right. in this broadcast that was pretty interesting. And I'm curious if any of you all have had these kind of experiences as well. So now I'm not interrupting you anymore.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So we have the ability to engineer ourselves into the fifth dimension, with the use of crystals and the sacred invocations that are said, part of which is using the Merkaba or Merkaba meditation, which is an acceleration via the speed of light. Mm-hmm. And some of you out there may know what that is and how that's done, or some of you may know what a Merkaba is. It's a three-dimensional Star of David. And so it's how we propel ourselves beyond the three-dimensional world in doing this healing work. And that's why when people are done with the session, one, I have them, get up slowly, mm-hmm. And sometimes I tease and I say, welcome back to Earth. And then they sit up and they're sort of wobbly and woozy for a little bit until they're completely regrounded, because they have been transported, into the fifth dimension. Now, they are in the room, but as I've said for many years, when we have those sessions, it looks like you're in the room, but you're not in the room. Mm-hmm. And you're experiencing a cross through dimensions. And the three-dimensional world that we live in is left, right, up, down. Okay? The fourth dimension is time. Mm-hmm. And we're learning how to bypass time. So when we cross through the fourth dimension into the fifth dimension to do that work, that's why when those sessions take about 90 minutes, people come back in and are astounded as to how much time has passed, because they think it's about 15, 20, 30 minutes.
Right.
Because you can't track time in the fifth dimension. because it doesn't exist. Time does not exist in the fifth dimension, which is part of why we can think of the universe as eternal or infinite, because the fifth dimension has no limitation like that based on time.
Right.
In the fifth dimension, there is no beginning and there is no end. So when we talk about references to that are almost biblical or religious, science comes into play in that regard in the fifth dimension. And by the way, in the work I did on you today, I actually took you into 12th dimension. So in the realms of healing, you go pretty far out.
It's pretty interesting.
Okay.
Shall we tell them a little bit about that session today? And by the way, hi, Jennifer. Good to have you here with us.
Hi, everyone.
I'm glad you found your cat. Thank goodness.
Oh, that's a good thing.
He showed up at the door. I haven't had a chance to tell her yet. So in the work that he did today with me, I have been off since, well, actually it's 2 months today since my father passed away. So I was at the hospital with my father, my siblings, and my stepmother, and we basically ushered him into, his next experience of his soul. Right. And ever since that experience, it was a lot to do. I mean, it was a lot for all of us, and it was really on a level of really beautiful experience, and it was really just, I can't even express, really just powerful for us as a family. But I came back and I told Nick, there's something off with me. And I have been feeling kind of out of it, not really present in some ways. I mean, when I'm working, I'm very present with my clients, but there's times it's like, I just have just weird stuff happening. So when he's working on me today, speaking of the fifth dimension, he's doing it, and he's literally kind of doing this thing where he's bringing his hand up and he's looking for things, because there's all of these areas of our lives that are in the ethers, these experiences that happen, they get kind of caught in places, as it were. Sure. And so he goes, oh, I found the culprit. And then you said that thing with what happened. So basically, I'll tell you.
You have to remember.
He forgets because he's just in it, and he doesn't. Sometimes he doesn't remember at all what the experiences were for people, and they're like, "Remember?" And he's like, "No."
So remember something, and many of you that watch have had sessions with me like that.
Gloria.
When you go into the fifth dimension, I'm not sending you out there on a kite string. I go with you. So I'm losing third dimensional consciousness, which is something we do have to talk about tonight in today's world, where people are talking about 3D versus 5D.
Yeah.
We have to talk about that. But I go in and out of fifth dimensional consciousness many times a week.
Right.
I travel a lot. My frequent flyer miles with the universe are infinite. Anyway, go ahead.
So when he was doing this work on me and he said he found the culprit, there was a part of me, because remember, and this is how I say it to my clients with the car analogy. So there's the us that's driving the car at this point. Like, you all are in there and you're watching us and you're driving your car. You're very present as you at this moment. And then when we have our fear feelings that happen and that stuff that goes on with us, there is our little me in the back seat. Like, I've got little Audrey. She gets angry sometimes and she gets offended and she gets bothered and whatever. And then I have to learn from her, and I have to be the adult for her. So there's these two people, but then we have another us that's our higher self. And that's that one that's kind of like seeing everything and a part of everything. So there's that higher me that is inspired thinking, that higher me that's like the internet, and I'm accessing information, and it's that part of us. So we're energetic beings, and we're having this human experience. So in the work today, he said that when I was helping to usher my father into his next experience of his soul, that there was a part of me that went with him.
Right.
And when I thought about it afterwards, I was like, wow, I could really see how that happened. And there was a part of me that was, it kind of moved into that dimension almost.
Let me give them a visual analogy. So for those of you that have seen the movie Jumanji, the original one with Robin Williams, not the one a few years ago. So in the end, when all the jungle animals and the hunter were being sucked back in because they won the game, what you see with visual effects and CG, it looks like they're being stretched and put back in. And so what happens, because your aura is a light body, and light refracts, which meaning it bends, that aura, your aura takes on distortions. And when your aura becomes distorted, you're not looking through a clear glass. The areas, your chakras become distorted because those are very, very sensitive devices. But when the aura takes on a warp, it is going to warp your consciousness. Okay. In fact, when it comes to warps like that, on well, here comes a promo. On Saturday, July 17th, I didn't mean to do that, I'm teaching a class called The Psychology of the Chakras, which is it is more of the mind part of what goes on in the chakras, and when people have psychoses or neuroses, what the aura looks like and what the chakras do. Anyway.
It's a really interesting class.
So what happened with Audrey is that when her father made his transformation, and Audrey was so connected, Audrey forgot to let go. And so there's a part to her that went into the ethers, and Audrey, because she, Audrey has been forgetful over the last couple of months. There's different things that you've done that you admit to. So what's happened is Audrey has been experiencing simultaneous multidimensionalism. And what that means is she's living in two different dimensions at the same time, which creates confusion. It creates a feeling of, I did that, I thought I did that, did I do that?
Right, and not being very grounded and centered and focused.
And it can also create the other way, which is like a deja vu. Well, I've done this before.
Right.
Okay. So when I worked on her today, what I did was I took her into the fifth dimension, as I do with anybody that has that kind of session, but also using the sentient plasma crystals to create an extra grid, engineering the speed of the etheric molecules as fast as they can go, allowable in that session, in the way we know what we can do. And then it got to a point where, in taking you to 12th dimension, I literally went in and reduced the particles, not just to the power of one, which is grounded in the three-dimensional world, but to ground zero. So for a moment, I took you into nothingness and then reversed, okay, as far as I could go in negative numbers, all right, which is like turning your pants inside out, then back around again. I reversed the entire auric body in the session, and then brought her back in and then back out to that high vibration, which we call the power of 84, where your etheric molecules, I believe, are moving at 429 million times faster than they normally move.
I had quite a trip today, huh?
Yeah, you did. Now, how do you feel?
Actually, I feel much more grounded, much more centered, and I feel much better. And to be clear, it's not when you're doing something like that, or when I was having my own experience in these last months, it's like there's this part of me I didn't feel right. So it's not like I'm in my own mind thinking, wow, you know what? I left something behind there in Nashville. I don't know what it was. There's just this feeling of there's something not right with me. And when you're having this kind of work, to be clear, it's not like when Nick was doing that, I knew something was happening and I felt good. I mean, it's not like you're feeling weird. I didn't feel like I was being twisted inside and out, but I understood what he was doing. And I just, to be very clear, I feel much, much better now. There's this like solidness within me. I don't feel funky.
So when I put my hand into Audrey's aura, it felt too much like air. Your aura is an electromagnetically charged plasmatic body, okay? It should not just feel like air. It's an essence, and there is, liquid, gas, solid, and there's plasma, all right? And so your aura, ideally, when you go up against that light body, should feel like a fairly full water balloon, okay? Not hard, not airy, not squishy, but some smoothness and firmness, but yet resilient. And when I put my hand into your aura, it's just like went into air.
Yeah.
Your aura had been eroded, and you do not have enough protection. Now, the other thing about that, if your aura is shaved down like that, then what happens is everything is getting too close. Your aura.
Oh, you can explain what's been going on with me with that.
Well, so your aura, ideally, going out to the 7th etheric layer, which coincides with your crown chakra, the 7th chakra, should be a good 3 to 4, at least 4 feet around your body, the circumference of your body. All right. So your aura goes out, say, here's your body, good 4 feet all the way around you. So you have protection, but also your aura is your primary sensory device. So if your aura is worn down and you're supposed to be able to sense things coming into your midst out there, everything was getting too close into Audrey. So anything was becoming an agitation.
I've been aggravated.
Yeah,
for no good reason. I've just been very aggravated, not having that buffer, and right. I knew I was aggravated, and I was really working very consciously to not say as much as I was aggravated. But yeah, there was a part of it where it's like I was just not myself.
Right, because you were losing a part of yourself. Now, when the aura goes out like that, and I was having fun today online, and I printed up all kinds of stuff that is, looking at all this stuff scientifically. All right. See, one of the things that was going on with you is that your aura was going into a black hole, which is scientifically called dark matter. And in that case, that's not bad. Okay. It's a place of non-existence.
Right.
And dark matter makes up the bulk of the universe. Okay. So there are these realms of, let's just call it's nothingness and something at the same time.
I want to move you into the camera more. I'm poking him from behind.
Yeah, there we go. So in reading from this, dark matter happens to be something we don't know too much about as well. We technically can't see it, and so scientists measure what effects its mass has on other observable matter. Okay? So in this case, in terms of the personal energy field, when you're getting close to dark matter, and I've seen that happen on a number of clients, that their energetic body somehow has, gotten, crossed by this, just called a pocket of energy, this dark matter. It has a tendency to absorb. And so what's happening is you're feeling yourself being sucked out of yourself and sucked into this black hole or dark matter.
Yeah, but you don't actually feel like that's happening. Like Nick and I have worked with many clients, move in a little bit more too. Nick and I have worked with many clients who really just have no idea why they're feeling so bad.
Right.
Like we had somebody just recently, I've been working with this person for a while, and she's just struggling. Finally was like, I think there's something else going on here. And I ship her over to Nick, and there is that part of it. She had in her own life a lot of that experience going on in it, no matter how she tried to move herself forward. And there was a big part of it. She just wanted to badly. And so when Nick was able to go in and he's able to readjust those things and make that correction, I just saw her recently, and I mean, she's way, way, way better. And now she can move forward. She doesn't have that pull into that dark side. And there is a dark side.
Right.
I want to address that in a minute as well after you're done with what you're going to do here.
So our glasses are a very good representation of chakras. So you can see that our glassware has these lines that are grids, and it looks like longitude and latitude. It's a great, this glass is a good example. So your chakras are not matter like a solid drinking cup. It's a grid work of energy. And I liken it to the lint trap on your dryer, so that external particles, environmental influences, ectoplasm gets into the screening or the grid work, and it's supposed to be moving, and the cone part of the chakra is moving counterclockwise and rotates against the wheel, the chakra itself, going clockwise. Well, when this is infiltrated too much, it slows it down and it leaves the chakra open for attack. Now, just as we have these little windows, these grids, imagine this is electromagnetic energy running up and down, left and right. Our auric body has grids around it, as does everything on the planet, which are called ley lines, L-E-Y, ley lines. And that's your grids. And so what happens is when there is some form of energetic event that hits something, whether a person or a location, then those grids, instead of being at perfect 90-degree angles, they begin to warp, meaning they will gap or knot, like an overused tennis racket where we don't put the strings back.
Mm-hmm.
And that causes a short circuiting in the auric body or in the location. Now, a chakra is on your body is a miniature vortex. So we talk about vortexes all the time, sensing vortexes, whirling energy. And when I go into, a home, I'll find a vortex. But because of the nature of all the quartz, there's a lot of quartz, which is silicon dioxide, in California, up and down the coast. If you go for a hike in the hills of Malibu, the Santa Monica Mountains, you'll find pieces of quartz just lying on the ground. What is the beach? Sand is a form of silicate, which silicon dioxide is quartz. That's the natural term for quartz. So there's vortexes everywhere.
Are you getting into my story?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So this takes a lot for me to talk about, but when we're talking about this fifth dimensional stuff, I really want everybody to be clear that not only do I have my story that happened just recently, I have another one that happened a couple years ago that really freaked me out. So this experience that I had recently actually didn't freak me out so much at all. It was just kind of very interesting. And before we go into that story, I want to just mention that as we're all moving into this new time, this fifth dimensional thing, that this veil of what's going on the inner and the outer, us and our human experiences and what's actually kind of happening in this space, that it looks like empty space, but it's not empty at all, that people are starting to experience a lot of unique things. Like I just got a text from somebody last night who said that they had somebody that appeared at their bed and then they disappeared, but it was a very, very definite, this person was there. And then it happened again. And she was so freaked out. She didn't know who else to talk to.
Yeah, it was an apparition.
It was an apparition.
Not a physical person.
No, it was not physical at all. And then I've had some other people who are hearing things and there's nobody there. I have had another few clients. I've actually, over the last, I want to say 3 years, I've worked with quite a few clients who have been hearing things in their head that's not their own thoughts, it's not their own voice, and it's things that are dark, like, for instance, suggesting that they hurt somebody. And a lot of times it's somebody close to them that they have no desire to hurt. And they're, they're like, what in the world is going on with me?
Right.
So as we're all in this moment, it's really important to understand we're all just energetic beings living in an energetic world
Right.
that is filled with stuff. It's filled with a lot of things. So many clients over the years have said, oh my gosh, my grandmother came to me, or somebody who passed away. And I mean, the stories that go on and on and on about all of this are incredible. But what Nick and I are noticing is that there are more happening recently to people, right?
Right, exactly. Because that as we move into this fifth dimensional experience, and I think we have to make sure we talk about 3 dimension versus 5th dimension too, because there are things that are written, in the internet and things we've looked at, and sometimes it comes off like people are going to be transported to another planet. That's not what's going on at all. It's an acceleration of consciousness, and people have a choice. And if you wish to just operate within the 3-dimensional world, and there's nothing wrong with that, then you're going to go about your daily business and whatever you do, and there's no judgment on that. And that's simply where a person's comfort level is. But this gateway, this stargate into the 5th dimensional realm, well, first of all, is really, this is another byproduct of going into the Aquarian age,
right?
Because it's a complete shift of consciousness, and it's a matter of allowing yourself to experience this higher consciousness, of evidence of experiencing vortexes and dimensional warps, and being open to what?
I want to say something. I realized something today as well, and I realized it with one of my clients, and I want to make this a little easier for people to understand, because I mean, when we get into these words, it's like sometimes people are like, what the hell are they talking about? And there's a part of it where when you raise your consciousness, and when we say raise your consciousness, it means stepping out of fear.
Sure.
So when we're understanding our anxiety, when we're understanding why we're angry, when we're understanding the kid in the back seat, why are you angry? Why are you so upset? What is this? And we start working through those things, and we start dumping the trunk. I call that dumping the trunk, because we're literally letting go of built up stuff that we have experienced over the years. Like that story that I have of how I was anxious going, and when I was in my daughter's room, and I realized that I had that memory that was locked and loaded that was so terrifying for me as a kid. So the more that we are dumping that crap out of our heart, the more the heart is open and wide, the more our consciousness is, instead of being in an unconscious fear mode, we're in a conscious intentional mode, and we're more available to be in this dimension. We're not stuck in the heaviness, the solid physicalness of our fear feelings, of our stuff. So when we release that stuff, it's almost like if we were to be in a hot air balloon, and we're letting go of all that stuff, we get to go higher, and we get to go more into that dimension. So for those that want to do this kind of thing more, there is a part of it where you have to release that fear. You have to let go of that stuff.
Right.
Does that explain it?
Sure. And also, as you are, whatever your aspirations to consciousness are, as long as it's good and well intended, and you're going to be more aware of events like this. That's simply what it is. And everybody lives within their own truth. What?
I'm saying hi to Julie.
Oh. Everybody lives in their own truth. So everybody will do what they do. My viewpoint on it is these events, these synchronistic events, and these energetic anomalies are going to become more frequent.
Yeah, they are.
And they're going to be very undeniable. So, be aware, and if you have an aspiration into more consciousness, well, my remedy for everything is meditate.
Not medicate.
No, not well. When you're talking about things that people experience, I kept my comment to myself. But for those of us who are age appropriate, no, these situations are not brought about by drugs. That was the 70s. That's not what's going on here.
Though there's a lot of studies that are going out about that right now, and there's a big comeback with psychedelics and whatnot. Not advocating for them or against them. I'm just saying that there's a whole bunch of new information that's coming out with regard to them. By the way, on my over here, I would like to say hi to Diana and Granny Sue and Randy. Nice to have you guys joining us.
Hello. Thanks for tuning in.
So to get back to my
Granny She.
Yeah. So getting back to that story, before I say it, I just want everybody to be clear. I'm not crazy. And this is the second time that I've had an experience like this, but the first time was a very different thing. So when you were talking about at the beach, it's quartz. Mm-hmm. Quartz crystal. That was very interesting, right? Because that's where my experience was. So I have been going to the beach.
By the way, that's also why in California, the sand gets so hot.
Yeah.
Because it's the quartz in the sand that's heating up like that.
Right.
Okay.
So I've been going to Leo Carrillo Beach for, I want to say like 35 plus years. And I go on a regular basis. I mean, I go a lot of times, like once a week. So I've been to that beach many times. And just recently I had been telling Nick, I mean, how many weeks ago was that? I was saying, it's very strange. I go to the beach and it's like, sometimes it's very different. It's like, it's not the same kind of beach. It's like, even the big boulders are changed and things are different. And I just was like, I don't even know, but I'll just keep an eye on it. And I take pictures there all the time. And sometimes I post them. I just posted a couple days ago. So on Sunday, I went very early because I like to hit low tide. And it was overcast. And I just had a lovely time. I'm just walking the beach. And there's this one, hi, Cheryl Vassar, love you. So there's this one place that you can go when it's low tide, and it is a kind of a bit of a cave that you walk through. And then on the other side of the cave, there is this little cave that I like to go and sit in. And so as I was walking to go to the cave, I was in this one spot and I was like, this is weird. I don't remember this area looking like this. Like it had a lot of big boulders. And not big boulders, what are they called? Like a big growths coming out of the ground. And I just had never remembered seeing them before. And I thought, this is strange. And there was a lot of like moss. I've never seen that kind of moss like I had seen on that morning as well. And I just kept putting it up to, I'm just enjoying the morning. And then I go into my special little cave that I've been in probably hundreds of times. And I came out on the other side of it. And I stood there and it was like, this is very different. And I mean, I know that place really well. It's like, it was not the same at all. They was similar, but like the little cave that I go and sit in, it wasn't anything like my little cave that I normally sit in. And it was just, it even felt different. I can't even express to you. I felt really strange. And I'm just standing there and I'm like, what in the world? It was kind of like the experience that I had a couple of years ago. And I just, instead of being anxious or upset about it, I was like, all right, so I'm just going to be with this. And I was just in the space and I was just kind of going with it. And I did take some pictures. And it was, I can't even express to you, it was like an out of kind of body experience on a level. And not that I was out of my body, but it was like kind of just very strange. So I loitered there for a little while and then I went back and I just was like, okay. And I called Nick and I said, you're going to think I'm crazy. And so then today, while we're in our session, when he was doing the energy work on me, I don't know if you remember what you said, but he's channeling Merlin some of the time. And I literally asked, I said, what in the world was that at the beach? And so Merlin responded, that place, I'd never realized it before. It's a vortex. And there is that part of it. It's like a bit of a time warp kind of vortex. And I don't know exactly how to explain it. I've never had that kind of experience before, like that there, but it actually happened to me. And I think for us to come forward and be able to say things like that, and to be able to share these things, like if somebody shows up at the end of your bed, or if, any of these kind of metaphysical, which means not in the physical kind of event happen, that it's important that we're sharing them with each other so we all don't think we're crazy.
Right. So when you enter into a vortex, especially a vortex that is big and strong,
Hey, Christina.
Just imagine that you're going into a revolving door at a big building, okay? But there's a certain speed that door is going at. And so you have to hit that opening just right, because you could walk through a vortex and not get affected. But if the vortex is moving in such a way and you enter into the portal of the vortex, okay, it's spinning. And then, like a fast moving revolving door, and you get out, okay, and it kind of, in trying to get out, it throws you out because of the centrifugal force. You come out and you have to get your bearings as to where you are. Did I go back out the same way I came in? Did I go the other side? And so this is a dimensional transportation that takes place. Now, when we talk about parallel existences, okay, which is part of multidimensionalism, these are parallel worlds. And so they look very similar to the three-dimensional world, okay? But because they are layered, and just like, we can go this way, we can go this way too, because people refer to as other physical incarnations as past life existences. We know it's not past, but it's like, it's the whole realm of where you can go.
So on a quick side note, keep on the realm of where you can go. There's a book that I just read recently. It's a novel, and I'm going to put it in our newsletter that's going out in the next couple of days. We're creating a book club, or I'm creating a book club, and I want everybody to read this, and you can listen to it on Audible. It's read by a great actress, and it's called The Midnight Library. It is amazingly good, and it's a novel where it explains this kind of stuff in a way that is very accurate. It's a very good book. So The Midnight Library by something Haig, Michael Haig, maybe. And check it out. And if you'd like to join our little book club, I would love to have you guys join us. And now get back to that.
So when you come out of the vortex, things may look similar, but they may also be different because you've gone into a parallel. All right. Now, when you focus yourself on your real world, in other words, at that point, in some way, shape, or form, you backtrack through there. Mm-hmm. Okay. And let's say you need to find your car. And there's something that happened to one of my clients just the other day. I've got to tell this story because it's similar to yours. You may lose your bearings actually and be confused about where your car is parked, because you could be in the parking lot there at Leo Carrillo, or you could be on PCH. And part of that confusion is, did I park it here today, or did I park it there another day? Or, see what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like the episode of Seinfeld where they can't remember the parking garage episode, right? Because everything looks similar. So it can be very confusing until you finally attach to something in the 3D world, and then you go, oh, wait a minute, there's my car. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it kind of draws you back into that space.
Right, exactly. So one of my clients had a similar situation. She shared with me yesterday that she was in Santa Monica, down to, Ocean mm-hmm. Avenue, and
3rd Street,
and had parked her car in one of those garages, and swore that her car was in this garage, and she couldn't find her car, and she thought it was towed, and said to the attendant, was my car towed? Because I was here longer. And he said, we don't tow cars. he said, "You're in the wrong structure." And she said, and this is a person that's very sound and sane, she really thought that that's where she came out of, and ended up she was a block away. And the way she told the story, it was very genuine. She would swear on a stack of Bibles that she put her car in there, but somehow she ended up at this one.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So I'm curious if anybody has these kind of experiences, had something like that. And, it's interesting to share them with other people in a kind of a safe space. I get it that people would think that we're crazy, but in reality, my life is pretty sane all the time. So when I have a moment like this, or like I had a couple of years ago, it's like, wow, this is just very unique.
So now let's speak astronomically and constellationally about the age of Aquarius. Okay. All right, not the astrological references like that. So as we are moving through space,
move it this way, looking there,
as we're moving through space, because everything is moving, the solar system is not stuck and we just go round and round like a merry-go-round. Everything is continually moving all the time.
The whole universe is moving.
And so when we talk about changing, like we used to be in the Piscean age, now we're in the Aquarian age, this is a spot in the universe. This is a spot in space where we are located now, where this galaxy, this solar system, this planet, this is where we are. And the representation of this position in the cosmos affects us differently than where we were for the past 2,000 years in the Piscean age. And so as this is set up divinely, it's universal. Everything that represents Aquarius as by the planet Uranus, which is an astrological thing, represents very sudden changes, unpredictable things, and extremely high consciousness things that to this point, or to a lot of people, just simply would not make sense. And the other thing that, whether we're talking about going through dimensions and parallel existences, the thing that I really have everyone understand and be prepared for, because I bet some of you have experienced this already, is sudden changes. And we look at the past year and a half as we went in and out of COVID, all right, things changed, a lot changed. And even though we have a lot of privileges back and we're able to get out again, it's not the same, all right? It's different. It feels good where everything is, but we need to be ready to, move fast. I don't mean you pack up your stuff and leave. I mean that a lot of things will come into your lives out of nowhere that you wouldn't expect. So one of the things I can tell you is to expect the unexpected, but there are times you may have to take a corner at 70 miles an hour because things are going to happen fast. And recently we have experienced some things, some very fortunate things that have come into our life that are all of a sudden, and very, very good things with opportunities. And in fact, the thing that happened with us last week has a lot to do with what Merlin prepared us for, everybody in this country, for about 10 years ago. That big changes in the financial system and how everything was going to start to change and happen, and the old was going to give way to the new. But be prepared for these dimensional shifts, especially the Aquarian age and the fifth dimension, that unexpected things will happen.
So it kind of goes back to what we have been saying for a while we were actually in COVID. There's that part of it where I like to use the analogy of the caterpillar and the going into the cocoon. For a lot of us, we were in that cocoon, and many of you that I actually see on here, you have come into our cocoon here, and you've been growing and expanding. You got to remember that the caterpillar goes in there and they have imaginal cells. We all have imaginal cells. So when you're doing what I was saying earlier about dumping the trunk and you're letting go of the excess baggage, and you're in that cocoon and you're really building that new you that's no longer the caterpillar going along on the ground, you're going to come out from this experience and you are ready to fly. Literally, we are all going to be ready to fly. So it's important, if you haven't done the process yet, if you haven't done the work of really understanding why you get so angry, why anxiety is happening, what those things are. It's not who you are. It's something that is going on within you that you have the ability to change. So it's important when you had said at some point, it's like, when this thing opens up, we really need to be able to hit the ground running, or we need to pop out of the cocoon and fly. It's time. It's go time. And there's a lot of things that are going to be happening in the month of July and August that are going to be a very, very big deal. So it's almost like when you said you have to be prepared and ready to go, in my mind of like, we have to be prepared and ready to go here on a regular basis because there are so many fires. And, I'm kind of my job in the house to make sure everything is lined up, and we're always in a state of, being prepared. So I think it's super important to people this is a great time to manifest.
Well, and these are incredible times to be alive. When we talk about the age of Aquarius, and age changes happen every 2,000 years, it's something that we've read and studied, especially astrologers, and there are those references, but we're living it, and we're living something that can only happen every 2,000 years roughly. So as we entered into the Aquarian age, we certainly, and it's very appropriate with Uranus, we certainly took off into turbulence. Okay. And
it's like a big ass hurricane we took off into.
Right. Well, of course, you're from Tampa.
Before. I've actually taken off. I was my only flight. I was the only flight taking off in a hurricane.
And I took off once out of Tampa because I had to stop there into thunder and lightning. Anyway, we want to be prepared, but we want to be prepared for things that are good.
Right.
Okay. Like it or not, and everybody has different viewpoints on COVID and why and how and all those things, but it actually is going to turn out to be an accelerant in creating a much higher awareness, because people are looking at things differently. Before COVID, if Western medicine came to most people and say, it's time to get that vaccine, most people, high percentage of people would do that. Since COVID, now that has varied a lot. Okay. There's so many people that have the vaccine, but now it's not like vaccine, no vaccine. It's more like this now. So it's created an awareness, and awareness is good, and it's okay to opinion. And it's definitely okay to do what you feel is right for you.
Right.
But this is part of that awakening and that awareness.
Right.
And there is, and what I can see and the way Merlin talked about it and what's in the chart of the United States for next year, there is a huge financial reset that's in process right now. And it's a good thing. That is part of this. So look, one thing you can say when you're dealing with anything Uranian or Aquarian is not boring. It is not boring at all. So just, strap in, enjoy the ride. And, it's not always going to be turbulent. Sometimes it's like a little roller coaster. And
It's like this. You have to strap in, and you keep both hands and feet inside the aircraft at all times, because you're in the eye of the hurricane. There was a whole analogy around that, because we're kind of in a moment right now, and I think it's going to be even more so in the next few weeks coming up, where there is going to be a lot of turbulence. And if you think about a hurricane, there is that eye of the hurricane where it's calm. You want to stay there. If you're okay in the moment, be okay in the moment. Don't be imagining what could possibly happen. If you have fear feelings that are happening, work through them. Be with it, but don't reach your hand out of the vehicle and grab onto some anger. Don't reach out the vehicle and grab onto some anxiety. Stay as calm as possible. and we're getting through this. I mean, I really believe that all the stuff that we have gone through and that we're going to be going through is going to lead us more to that humanitarian world. I think there's a lot of adjustments that have needed to take place, and it's just part of the process of life.
When we were talking about chakras as vortexes, and chakras are many vortexes, I want to show something real quick. We create these devices when we do the healing work that we arbitrarily call chakra plates, and they're made in different materials, and you can see that the crystals offset each other and to create this symmetry, so that everything points into the center point, which is the center of the vortex, or the eye of the hurricane. And so these devices are made, like this one is designed for the feet, okay, to center, ground, and balance.
I want to bring it up a little closer. Look how pretty this one is. That's called specular hematite, the actual thing itself.
Yeah, the plate itself.
And it's such a pretty one. Can you see how it sparkles?
Yeah, because it's hematite, and the sparkly part is mica. And by the way, in California is very rich in mica. And what mica does, mica creates elasticity in the ground, and it helps slow down seismic activity. If we didn't have mica in the ground in California, every earthquake would just shake everything to bits, even if it was like a 3.8.
I have some really nice mica pieces that I'm working on. Gloria brought up something about this man was yelling at her for not having a mask on. I don't have that kind of experience myself, and I'm going to just say I think it's important, and this is something that everybody can do. We're in a moment right now where there's a lot of people who are angry, who are frustrated, who are just living a moment of real serious challenge. So what you can do before you leave your house, you literally put your attention on going out, and you're going to have this time however you want to do it. So for instance, if I don't want somebody yelling at me, I'm going to put my attention on, I'm going to have a nice peaceful moment out. And then the other thing that you can do, your second chakra, which is right here, right?
No, your third chakra.
I mean, your third chakra is
your
where
solar plexus.
Your solar plexus is where you take in other people's stuff. So what you want to do is usually you imagine it like a wide open lotus flower. And before you go out, I'm closing it to anybody else's negative business, anybody's negative anything. And then the other thing that I do, and I just posted this today because it just came up, there is this ability that we have to, we have to create a bubble of immunity around me, around yourself. So what you're doing is you're saying, I'm immune to your negativity. It doesn't serve me. So if anybody's yelling at you, that's their business, not yours. If you're following the rules of the road and somebody else has a problem with that, you just look at them, have compassion for them, understanding, obviously their life is not very good. I'm not going to make it any worse. So I'll have compassion and understanding for you, and we'll just let it go. All right. So Gloria, that's a practice. And before you ever go out, put your attention on those people that are in alignment with you.
Right.
Exactly.
And by the way, that is part of this 3-dimension, 5th-dimensional kind of shift. There are people that will just want to stay behind in that kind of very solid kind of earthy thinking, which is fine. But other people are going to accelerate into this higher consciousness. And it'll be what it'll be. Now, again, are we going to another planet? No. But what it will do is create sort of a alliance, so to speak, not as in friends or enemies, but it'll create sort of a separation where, because it's a different consciousness, you may find that, no, you don't get into an argument with those people, but you sort of forget about them. There's a sort of this rift of consciousness that takes place. That's probably a good way to describe it. All of a sudden they're just not in your life anymore. So,
and you have to make that okay.
Right. Right. And if somebody that you know and have known just is getting upset with you and you really haven't done anything, then that's just an indicator that this shift of consciousness is taking place.
Yeah.
And again, it's okay. And this is just the tip of the iceberg with this. We're experiencing it, but this is years and years and years to come.
Yeah.
That will continue.
We've been working with a lot of families and a lot of couples and things like that.
Julie wrote, that's interesting. I'm noticing certain people moving away. Yes. Yep. Oh, yeah. And you're also going to see, and I know people look at this as a, thank you for writing that, as more of a geographical thing or an economical thing, where people all of a sudden leaving California to go, like a lot of people are going to Texas. This is just something that people feel inclined to do. In other words, people have this feeling, and it may not even be researched that much. It's just this feeling of we're going to move there.
Yeah.
Okay. So people are going on a certain amount of insight, instinct, intuition also on this. Are we being directed? Yes. For our own good? Yes.
Does that mean I should go back out in the woods again soon? I'm being directed.
That's Audrey talking to Audrey.
Audrey needing a good week in the woods. So what I was saying before is we've had a lot of clients over the years, and then even more so recently, that we've been working with, that when they own their compassion for somebody, instead of meeting them in their anger or meeting them in their whatever their fear feeling is, and they're able to rise above it, and they're able to own a new consciousness with the person, then they're helping to help that person rise up to meet them. Because when you're meeting in anger, anger meets anger, it's just going to be more anger. When you can step back when somebody's approaching you with any of their stuff, and you're able to have that compassion and understanding for whatever they've got going on, and you rise above it, it's a very powerful way to raise the consciousness in relationships. And we've been having some people have some really strong success with that. Yeah. What do you want to share in the last 3 minutes, Mr. Newmont?
Well, I just want to talk a little bit about locations on the planet. We can do another whole show on light grids, solar grids, crystal grids.
Anybody want to hear that stuff? If you do, give us a thumbs up.
But there are portals, which are dimensional doorways.
Laura's in Zion.
And so there's a few places on the planet are considered major portals and dimensional doorways. Uluru in Australia, Mount Kailash in Tibet, Machu Picchu in Peru, the Giza Pyramids of Egypt, Sedona in Arizona.
I love Sedona.
And Stonehenge
That's where I should go.
in England.
Should go
So
to Sedona. These
are all major portals of activity. Yes, we're going to do that. We're going to do Sedona this summer. Anyway, so there's so much more on this topic that we can talk about. It is a very meaty topic. It's a topic for today, and there's a lot of different ways to look at this metaphysically, spiritually, and scientifically, because it is science, and science, in terms of particles and all this. I mean, there's so much I could have talked about that's in here.
We could talk about this for a long time.
So we'll talk about it more.
And in the last 2 minutes, I want to talk about, we have a whole bunch of new classes that we have coming up. Nick's going to be teaching the I Ching. He's got his new I Ching, the new sentient.
I just I Ching to teach that. That's the way you said it.
Sentient healing class starting. That's going to be a big deal.
Right.
We rescheduled our relationship workshop. And do you have something else?
Well, the psychology of the chakras is July 17th. I Ching, or said properly, Yi Jing. And if you take that class with me, I'll teach you the proper way to say Chinese words.
That one's a fascinating class. That's very interesting.
Coins. Yes. That comes up in August, and then level 1 sentient healing starts the second Monday in September. That's the 12th or 13th. I don't have that in front of me. But if you're interested in learning how to do this level of healing work, Get in touch.
Yeah, the basic class. That doesn't start, that usually is like once every 2 years. I think you started it last year. No, actually before COVID. At any rate, in the last seconds, if you would like to get on our email list, just text me at 818-665-6165. You can go to our information at newmontcenter.net. And we will be back here again next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. I will be on conscious mind tripping on Thursday. I'm going to be a little bit early because I have a special concert to go to. So that'll be at 6 o'clock on Thursday. And we would love to have you join us for all these things. So in the meantime,
I'm Nick Newmont. This is Audrey Newmont. You have been watching Mainstream Metaphysics here on Facebook and on YouTube Live.
Yeah, YouTube Live for the first time.
So anyway, thanks everyone. Appreciate it. And see you Thursday with Audrey, and both of us back here next Tuesday night with more fun information to share. Meaty topics.
Thank you all for joining us over online. And remember to share with your friends and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Mainstream Metaphysics.
Sure.
Much love to you all.
Take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.
Bye. Ding. 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 Whoosh.
Now what do I do? Next.